So I was thinking about this as well, and I thought, well, what's Flocknote's game changer? What are we really trying to do? Where can we start? And so I summed it up as this. So what if every bishop and every pastor could reach or hear from any or all of their parishioners anytime they needed to? A very simple concept, right? And isn't this sort of this is the magic of technology in a sense, the essential part of it. Everything else is kind of details, the way we do it and the context we do it within and how we connect everything together. But at the end of the day, it's that I can pull out this device, I can say something, lots of people can immediately hear it from all over the world, and then I can also hear back from them, right? And this is what this technology should be helping us do as a church, as its essential mission being evangelization, not administration, and we can't do it. Most parishes have no way to reach their parishioners in between Sundays. They have no way to reach their parishioners if they stop showing up on Sundays. Most bishops have no way to reach their parishioners directly when they need to, and in a timely way, and in an efficient way that doesn't cost lots of money. But this is what all this technology is supposed to help us do. So how can we do that? How can we start there? So we started with, well, what are the problems keeping us from doing this? So I'm going to run through these, and then I'll delve into each one and then talk about how we kind of solve it. So the first one was, we're not leveraging our existing church structure very well. The second is novelty and naivety, our sort of attachment to them or flaws there. Current tools that we do have are not used. I'm sure you all experience this a lot. You put these great tools in place, and then it's hard getting parishes to use them sometimes, right? So that's a challenge. Poor communication and lack of intentionality. So let's break each one of these down. So not leveraging church structure. So right now, when we started trying to help parishes improve what they're doing, even within a parish structure, it often doesn't leverage the structure of the parish. So we looked at each ministry, and most ministries were operating all by themselves. So they may have technically what their boss says is, this is our central database, right? You have to update this as a part of your job. But in most cases, it's not up to date. And if you talk to an average ministry leader, most of their up-to-date, most important contact info is in their cell phone, it's in an Excel spreadsheet on their computer, it's in their contact list, in their Outlook account. It's in all these other places because it's not, and it's not in that central database. And so the pastor's ability to sort of leverage all those channels for himself to reach parishioners is not there. It's all disjointed and disconnected. And then, of course, at the diocesan level, there's definitely no connection there, except for, again, in that central database that sometimes doesn't get updated like it should. So we started, well, how can we fix this? What's sort of the core, where should we start? And we thought, well, we have to start with the most sort of essential connection for a parishioner, which is with the ministry. So we have to have something that the actual ministry leader likes to use and will use. And if you have that, because those are the people that if someone's cell phone number changes or if their email address changes, they know it first, right? Because they didn't get that email that went out last week. Oh, I need to update that for you, right? Because they're using it every day. They're talking to these people every week. And so we have to have that in the loop somehow. And then from there, that can feed into, if you have something consistent across all your ministries, then you have something that feeds your entire parish database. And then if you have something across all parishes, that feeds into your diocesan database. And then back around. So now the diocese and the bishop does have a direct way to reach down those channels. And as soon as a ministry leader or a parishioner updates a piece of contact info, everybody's is updated at the same time, right? You guys understand this concept, of course, because I know you're working on solving these problems all the time. But the difference lies in some of these other issues that we're going to talk about, and how do we make that cycle work? How do we make it work for the mission of the church? So the next one was novelty and naivety. And I mean this in an innocent sense. Naivety in the sense that most parish leaders just don't know. They don't understand the tools they should use. They don't understand how to use them. And so they make a lot of bad decisions about which tools they should use. Because they sound neat, because they're cool, because everyone says you should do them, but they don't get down to how are they really going to help them. They don't understand which tools will help them most. They're overwhelmed by the many options that they have. They're distracted by things that may be gimmicks that they think are going to be shortcuts to getting the young people excited or whatever, but they skip over what actually will work. Or in a lot of cases, they're too focused on that, as Dynamic Catholic says, that 7%, the people they're your engaged folks. They're going to do anything you ask them to do. They're typically the people who are already in your database, and you're building systems around maintaining that 7%. Instead of figuring out a system that can expand that and reach a lot of other folks. So what are the most effective communication tools? And this was sort of essential to Flocknote's process and evolution, really. Because when we first started, we actually did a lot more, we had a lot more features in some sense. We communicated across more channels. And what we realized over the years was that there's some channels that are really effective and others that are just sort of gimmicky or not really worth the time, especially if you're not getting the essentials done. So we looked at a number of different things. So one of them was like open rates. If we take your typical open rate, so when you send a message out, what's the percentage of people that get it at the other end, right? So we looked at some of the typical ways a parish might communicate. And all the parishes, of course, in New York are very typical in terms of all this. So everything fit right in when we talked to the Archdiocese of New York about solving these problems. So take the bulletin. I've asked thousands of parish leaders this question now. What percentage do you think open the bulletin and actually get the message inside of it? Anyone have a guess? Yeah, you guys are right in there. So 5% is the most common answer I get. I'm generous here with the scale, 1 to 20%. Some people who really believe in the bulletins insist it's higher. But if I've asked thousands of them, 5% is the average, okay, of what they think really gets the message. Facebook is another one. Facebook, and Father Wagner had a great talk earlier talking about the value and benefits of it. And so I don't say this to discourage the use of it at all, because it's a very, very powerful tool in our day to reach a lot of people that we can't reach yet. However, when you look at just its ability to get the message out about a particular thing, you have an announcement, you want to get feedback on something, whatever it is, the average sort of open rate, if you will, for a page on Facebook is 12%. So you get everybody to like your page. If you send out a message on that, the average number of your fans that will see that is about 12%. Email is another common one. And email has a huge range. As a lot of you probably know, the average for most industries is somewhere around 25%, 20 to 30%, an average email. But already you're getting better than these other forms you have in terms of open rates. And most of our parishes who do a good job on Flocknote see upwards of 50% regularly on an open on an email. So upwards of 50% on an email is great, right? Email is still, you ask any business what their sort of main, most valuable marketing tool is, most of them will say their email list. And then finally you get to something like text messaging, which has just exploded in the last few years. And you think about the open rate for text messaging, it's about 98%, right? Because before they can decide not to read it, they've already read it, right? Because it pops up in their face and there it is. So of course it's the most disruptive form of communication. You have to be very careful about how you use it, but the most powerful if you can do it. We have lots of parishes that tell us, they say, now that we can text so many of our parishioners, we double attendance rates to something like a holy day. Because the difference between announcing a holy day on Sunday, saying, don't forget, holy day on Thursday, Mass is at noon and 6. By Monday, everybody's forgotten. They're back in their routine. They don't show up on Thursday. The same people that show up on Thursday every time show up, right? You send out a text message on Wednesday night that says, don't forget, holy day tomorrow, Mass is at noon and 6, and you double your attendance the next day, right? This is the magic of it, right? It's not complex. It's just the ability to do that at the right time and the right way. Extremely powerful. So open rates is a big one. Usage rates is another one. So if you look at, you remember, guys, Herman Cain, the last election cycle had his 9-9-9 plan. Well, today you can remember the 91-91-91 plan, because for whatever reason right now, all these stats are about 91%. But if you look at usage rates, so 91% of people in the U.S. use a mobile phone, most of which text. 91% use email, and 91% of those people who use email check their email every single day. There's no other communication channels out there that you can get that kind of usage rates on. And then you combine that with the open rates, and you have something that is really powerful that we should be really looking at. Another thing we looked at was barrier to use. So this is a big thing. So it's one thing if something really works well, but can you get people to use it? And so when we looked at stuff like this, apps is a good one in this case. So apps, if you can send somebody a push notification from an app, that's great. But you first have to get them to download an app. And downloading an app is a pretty big step for most people. And so when you look at things like that, barrier to use, barrier to connect, something like texting in a keyword versus downloading an app is much more effective. So that was what pushed us with Flocknote, where we have, rather than an app that someone downloads, we say, just text in this keyword. So Father has Sign Up Sunday. He says on Sunday, pull out your phones, everybody. I just want you to text this keyword to this number. Text join to 84576. And we're going to text you the most important thing going on this week, each week. You can unsubscribe anytime you want. So that's a first step, and it's worked. So the barrier to use is really low for a parishioner. So someone who's not registered at all, who hasn't taken the time to come in and fill out forms and do all this kind of stuff, says, okay, I'll just text in. I'll get the updates. And then it walks them through a process from there. It then says, it gives you a link back. You click that. It says, give us your name and your email address. And then after they do that, it says, here's all our ministries. Pick which ones you want email and text messages from. So they can pick exactly what updates they want. So all that's part of the process. But again, this is why Flocknote has developed into a tool that focuses on a low barrier to use and that leverages the most effective communication technologies out there. And if we just focus on that, if the church had the ability to do that game changer alone, would change everything they do as a church and improve every other aspect of what they do in really big ways. Just another interesting stats from sort of the marketers out there. 33% of mobile customers prefer offers via text message to those via mobile web, which are 21%, apps 11%, and voicemail 8%. So even there you see this preference for texting and all these other things in terms of how they're using mobile technology. And then even then, if we look at mobile phone usage, so what functions are used the most often by the most people on their phone? Who wants to take a guess at what number one is? Yeah, texting's number one. And number two, talking. Number three, email. Number four, yes, other apps, basically. So whatever your social media preference is. But this is most often used by the most people. Number one and two switch when you get over the age of 50. But otherwise, they're almost the same, right? Okay, so this is why Flocknote has chosen to focus very heavily in the ability to text and email and make that really easy, practical, and helpful to a parish ministry. And if you do that for the parish ministry, it starts to help some of these other problems, which is the next problem we talked about, which was current tools are not used. So we said, well, how do we get them to use these tools? And we asked them why. Well, why aren't you using that tool you have? Because we'll talk, do you have the ability to send an email out? Yeah. Do you have ability? Well, why don't you do it? Well, I forgot how to use it. Or it's a little too hard. Or it takes me too long. Or it's really helping somebody else and not me. So what we found the key is that it has to be, so if we look at what tools do they use, it has to be something simple and it has to be immediately helpful to that person. So nobody at the parish level is interested in solving your problem as an IT person at the diocese. They don't care. It would be nice if they did, but they don't. What we have to do is help them solve their problems and in the process help make our jobs easier, right? And of course, hopefully all honed into the same common mission as a church. And so when we look at making it simple, here's a few of our features that we developed and really honed in for the launch in New York that really helped the launch there get off the ground really well. So here's just a short, you can see kind of the text to join process in action. Hopefully you can see that okay, but they're just texting into the short code, so it's a 5-digit short code, so they don't have to put in all 10 numbers, just 5 numbers, and the parish picks whatever keyword they want. They can get additional keywords if they like, and they text that in. And then immediately after they text that in, it's going to reply back. It's going to say welcome to whatever ministry or whatever parish they're joining into. It also sends them another link. It says we'd like to get a little more info from you and let you join some other groups. So you click that link immediately on your phone. If you don't have a smartphone, you can reply with your email address and it finishes it on your computer. But you fill in your name, you fill in your email address, so it gets a little bit more information. But again, we're not asking for a lot. We want to have gradual, nice baby steps. And if they abandon the process at any point, it already has that much. They're set up to text right now because they've already opted in. So they're going to get a text message from the parish. Now they're set up to get email. Now they can customize exactly what things they want to get. So they can choose which ministries. You can create as many groups as you want. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. So they get to completely customize what communications they get from the parish. And it goes from there. So that process all happens right there when they're sitting in front of you on Sunday without ever having to leave the pew. They didn't have to download anything. They didn't have to type in any websites. They didn't have to go home and remember to do something. All they had to do was sit there and text that in. So extremely powerful at getting up to date. The most important contact info for your members today is their mobile phone number and their email address. And unfortunately, a lot of central databases don't have that data, or if they do, it's out of date. And so this helps you get those all in 1 minute on any time they're gathered in front of you. Another thing was sort of making the creation of, sending stuff really easy. So on the right's a bunch of dashboard stuff, but everything on the left is basically all you need to function in Flocknote. So it's a very simple interface. We've taken a lot of things that you would like from an email marketing tool or a text message marketing tool and pulled in the things that ministries really use and left out a lot of the stuff that just confuses them. That makes it so that they don't end up using the tool. And again, it has to be something they'll actually use. It has to be something your average or even below average ministry leader will use and benefit from. So if we look at this video, you can just see it just sending a text message. You have all your groups on the left. You can select any group and see a history of everything that's been sent out before. Up in the top is all your functionality. So there I click the write a note button. Pops up a window. You pick which group. If you haven't already selected a group, it asks you which group you want to select it. You check it if you want to send a text message or an email. Here it sends text message. You say go. It pops up a really simple interface. You type in your message. Another cool thing about Flocknote is the ability for it to capture all the replies. So people can reply directly to the text message. It captures all the replies in one place for you. It doesn't do the group text blow up everybody's phone thing. It captures it all in one place on one page for you. And you can, so it's pretty amazing to think that a pastor can ask his parishioners a question and in a matter of minutes have answers from hundreds of them right there. Another thing you can do that's pretty cool is you can schedule this stuff to go out later. So if you want to send it another time in the week or whenever, you put it in the schedule, it's going to send it out for you. So it tracks all that for you. Additionally, so here's just to show you the email composer. It's kind of in the middle of, it's already dropped a video in there. It works similar to eCatholic in that it's got the ability to drag and drop and sort of build your email. So it's real easy for your average parish ministry leader to use this. You say, I want to create an email. It gives you a subject. You type your subject in. You'll see over on the right, you can make it into a 1-column or 2-column layout. And you can drag things around. You can change the width of the columns. Here I popped in a little text box. I'm typing in some text over there. So it's all modular. You can drop in a text box wherever you want it. You can drag the column around to make it on the left or on the right or in the middle. And then here I decided, well, I'm just going to make a 1-column email. And so I'm going to drag the content, drag my video, drag my call to action button over to the 1 column. And it's got all the sort of editing of the fonts and like you would in any kind of word editor, text editor. So it turns it into a 1 column. Check something there, it's hard to read. It says send as a newsletter, so you can add in a newsletter header image at the top. It just pulled in the one that I'd recently used. So you can change that whatever you want. You can add in a poll. I think here I click on a poll. That's another neat feedback feature is you just click poll, it pops it into the body of the message. You can see at the bottom here, it's probably hard to read, but you type in the name of the question you want to ask. You create as many answers as you want. And this is another great example of kind of the barrier to use. A lot of feedback systems in church software and sort of the tools they're using require for the person to get feedback to log into some sort of private social network or something else. So the reason they don't ever reply is, well, I clicked the link to go reply and then I had to log in, so I stopped. Or I forgot my password, so I stopped, right? So Flocknote tokenizes the whole experience. So when it sends an email to somebody, they can literally just, when they get this poll that says, what night do you want to meet, Saturday, Friday, or Sunday? They just click their answer and it immediately tallies up their response for you. So you get all the responses to their polls right there. Same with the RSVP function for the event stuff. Same with replies. They reply, again, directly to the text message. They reply directly to the email, and it captures all those replies for you in one spot. So that barrier to use is really low, which means we get a ton of feedback and a ton of interaction that you don't get on very many tools. Let's see. You can also, a couple of other things on the side of there. You can attach files and insert videos just by sticking the URL in and things like that, similar to eCatholic's one. So next problem we were facing was just poor communication. One of the things we learned early on with Flocknote is that giving parishes tools, and you guys probably know this better than anybody, when you give someone a powerful tool, they can do as much good with it as they can damage, right? And unless they know how to use it right and what they're using it for, they can scare people away from the church with it as fast as they can get them to come in. And so what we've learned is it's 20% sort of teaching them the technical parts, how do you send a note, how do you do this and that in the system. It's 80% execution. How do you use it? What are you saying in your messages? What kind of relationship do you already have with your people? So this is something we've identified and we've been working on really hard. So not only, so we say, how do we solve poor communication? We have to both equip them and we have to teach them. And too many things are just giving tools to parishes, or they're just picking up tools that they're finding places, and they don't know how to use them very well. So we've started to put together a lot of things to help solve that problem. So not only do we make something that is, a simple, beautiful tool where they can create professional content, professional communications that's consistently branded and all that kind of stuff for their parishes, but we want to help them use it well. So we have stuff like when you get started, and you guys can check this out, it has more details, and this helps you with kind of maybe visualizing how we launch a parish also. But if you go to flocknote.com/getstarted, that has it's a 4-step process for a parish to get started on Flocknote. It's got a 15-minute presentation video they can watch that teaches them everything about sort of the value of using Flocknote. But we want to teach them the overall concept at first. But we do free webinars. We started something called the Noteworthy Project, where we're doing these short courses online. The one we just got up now is 6 reasons your communication strategy is failing and how to fix it. These are common problems we see in parishes, and they have nothing to do with the technology. This is something that helps anyone communicating in the parish. We do admin updates where we're constantly teaching our admins how to use it better. We're sharing best practices through our blog and other ways. And then finally, we also created, some of you may have heard about it, the Digital Church Conference. If you go to digitalchurchconference.com, if we haven't been out to your diocese yet, we'd love to come out. If we have been, we'd love to come out again. But it was something we put together with Flocknote and eCatholic and Brandon Vaught and now Parish Designer as well. It's a great team of people, and it's a one-day guide to kind of getting all your parishes excited about using tools in a really good way for the new evangelization. It's not a sales pitch for our products at all. It's really focused on new evangelization and new media and how they go together, best website practices, how to use social media and these other tools to help get the message out about the church. Final problem we looked at was that lack of intentionality, which is kind of an extension of poor communication. But in sort of these fundamental issues that they don't have. They don't have a clear goal with what they're trying to accomplish with the tools. There's no segmentation, so they're saying everything to everyone. This is one of the problems with the bulletin, because the bulletin is a little something for everyone. So if I want to get the data in, I have to search through 95% of stuff that's not for me. So the ability now to segment which data goes to which people is really powerful. We're not doing that. We're not tracking any kind of data, so we don't know what's working. We're not looking at simple things like open rates and analytics and things like that. And the tools that we have in place sometimes don't do those things, so we don't even know. I can't tell you how many, and you guys probably deal with this problem. We have a lot of parishes that are like, yeah, our server got blacklisted again because the secretary keeps copying and pasting 1,000 email addresses into the BCC field and sending it out from our server. I'm like, yeah, you're not supposed to send email that way. But they just don't know, and they're sending it out, and they have no idea how many are bouncing, if anyone's even getting it, all those kinds of things, because they have no way to track them properly. So we answered that by coming up with smart communication tools. So it's looking at like simple things like allowing people to choose which groups you communicate with. So segmenting your groups, so you have particular things you can say to particular people, and then targeting your messaging based on that. Also, the flip side of that is kind of allowing the parishioner to have a preference. So a lot of times we sort of blast our message on the same channels and parishioners just turn it off, and then we lost them. So when you allow parishioners to say, no, I want updates from that ministry and this ministry and this ministry, and then if I get tired of that ministry, I just turn it off, allows you to be much more effective with your communication. Not only are your open rates better, but your unsubscribe rates are lower. Feedback is a huge one. So much of the communication we do now is in the church is one way, because we're used to just broadcasting our message, and it's all about what I want you to know. And it's not about the real potential of a lot of these tools, which is feedback. So again, capturing replies, doing polls, and being able to do something with that data, but also looking at those kinds of analytics. So knowing, having any idea that when I send this message out, 5% of people open it. Okay, maybe I should stop sending that out, But when I send this out, 55% people open it. Okay, this is something we should keep doing, So it's just even having any kind of relative gauge of how well your communication's doing. So all those kinds of, tracking bounces and unsubscribes and things are important things that we build into Flocknote and make it easy for them to kind of track who's opening their email, what the open rates are, what's bounced, do you need to update someone's contact info, all that kind of stuff. So future stuff for Flocknote, which has really come about from a lot of our learning experience with all of this stuff, and really continuing to identify a real need in the church. First starts with even smarter communication. So it's looking at these groups and creating smarter groups and smart lists and more analytics so we can really understand, or we can only communicate with people. And you see this in some marketing tools now. I want to send a message only to people who just open that other message, And when you think about applying this concept to giving and payments and volunteerism and all this stuff, it's just the potential is huge if we can use it properly. Another one is parishioner engagement rating. Going back to Dynamic Catholic Study, if you look at, they identified that 7% of the people in a parish basically give 80% of the money and do 80% of the volunteer hours, right? And then a good goal is, well, what if we engaged 1% more this year? So what if we could engage 1% more people? We would increase our giving and our volunteer hours by 15% to go from 7% to 8%. And 1% is not a lot of people in a parish. But what if we could tell them who those people should be? Who are the people that are ready? Who are your 7%? But then who are the people that are ready to become the 8%? And the 9% and the 10%. Because what you say to the 7% should be different than what you say to the next 20%, and should be different what you say to the bottom 70% that aren't even showing up to Mass. Because if you're asking for money from the 7%, great, they're in there, they're there. We need more money for this. But if you send that same message to somebody who hasn't even been coming to Mass, and they get that, what is that going to do? Not only are you not going to get any money, but they're going to alienate them. They don't want to come anymore, right? So we have to learn how to communicate smarter and use the tools to do it. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. So we're excited to sort of help parishes understand their members more and show them who those people are and how they can communicate well with them, as well as share best practices. Like when you send a message like this to these types of people, it does really well. But if you're talking about sending something to these people, you should use this kind of message. So we can take data that we're learning across thousands of parishes and start to understand what works and what doesn't. And through that, we can figure out what is driving giving and driving volunteering. So when they sign up for this ministry, we see that giving goes up. Well, why is that? Let's figure out what's happening there. Another thing is just basic goal tracking and achieving for the church leaders. And then something we're really excited about, we're already working on a lot of these things, and they're just sort of growing. They're in baby stages right now. But a parish being able to look at a dashboard to see, here's all our ministries, here's how well they're communicating, here's the ones that are growing, here's the ones that are shrinking. And then imagine a diocese being able to sit back and see every single parish and see which parishes are doing something, see every message that's going out in every parish and every ministry, which ones are landing well, which ones aren't, which ones are growing, which ones are shrinking. That's the kind of map that we're putting together right now, which is really, really exciting. And we're starting to do that with, we're in a number of dioceses already. We're starting to work with the Archdiocese of Baltimore. We're starting to work with the Archdiocese of Denver, and there's a number of them that are really excited to get in and take advantage of all this stuff. To give you a quick idea of launch, if there's specific questions on this, please ask afterwards, and I'm happy to go into more detail because I know I'm running short on time. So our launch has a similar sort of real simple process to eCatholics. The main step is that first one where you get a good champion and you get your team of people that are going to help you implement this at the parish. And that's something we need help from the diocese to do, because you guys know the parishes, and you know the people at the parishes who are going to lead and who need and who want to evangelize and want to communicate better. But once we have that, the process is really simple. We reach out to them. We get them started. Their network's already all created for them. They watch. It takes them about an hour. There's a 15-minute presentation video. It's that one at that /get started page I mentioned earlier, flocknotes.com/get started. You can watch it there. It basically walks you through these steps. That's what they do, is basically that process. And they can do it as a team. They can do it individually. From there, we can take all their existing content, all their existing contact info, so all their email addresses and mobile phone numbers and stuff they already have from all their different ministries, from their cell phones, from their email accounts, from their Excel spreadsheets, all that, and put it into the system, and they can immediately start using it already from that, as long as they gathered those legally, of course. And then finally, we encourage them to do these text to join sign up Sundays, so they can promote this, they can have fun with it. They have everyone bring their cell phones next Sunday, and then after Mass, they say, pull out your cell phone and tell us what ministries you want to hear information from. Get us your updated contact info. And it's a really smooth process, and that's something they can do at any event. They can do it any time. In New York, we had, after about 7 months, we had about 73% of the parishes we got champions from that are actively using Flocknote now. So it was a huge undertaking. That was about 173 parishes that are now actively using it on there, and we're continuing to work to get the rest of them on board as well. Yes, question? They're largely overlapped. So we haven't actually looked at exactly what that is, but we have some anecdotal evidence because we've been helping. We've been trying to help each other get parishes we don't have, but we find that a lot of them are the same. If you get a good champion from one, a lot of times it was the same champion from both the eCatholic or Flocknote. But let's answer a few of those questions kind of that we kind of get from dioceses in the launch. And one of them is, do you have to do eCatholic and Flocknote together? And the answer is no, of course not. We've done in New York, that was the biggest one. We did that one together, and it went great. But we've had a number of other dioceses that each of us are working with now where we're doing that separately. So it can work, one then the other. You could do them at the same time. You can do one or the other, of course. So whatever kind of fits your needs, that's something we can work with, and we're still learning the best ways to do that. But it really depends on the circumstances in your diocese and everything else you have going on. Another question we get is, how do dioceses fund it? So basically they pay for every parish to get it, but then they'll recoup costs in different ways. So some of them just have the money, which is great. Some of them will recoup through the cathedraticum, so they'll take a small percentage, which again, for both these tools, you're talking about, you could have both eCatholic and Flocknote in a parish for less than the price of a cell phone bill. And you have unlimited texting, unlimited email, a great web presence, all these kinds of things for all your ministries to use for less than the price of a cell phone bill at a parish. I mean, it pays for itself. You take up that extra collection at the Holy Day each time, and you've paid for all of it already at one Holy Day. Yes? Yeah, we're working on those numbers. So trust me, we want those numbers too. So we're working on measuring more of that kind of stuff because I think there is a direct impact on the ability to raise money and get people involved. So we're working on more official ways to kind of track that so we can promote that. But certainly, they pay for it different ways. They'll split the parish cost with the parish sometimes. They'll recoup it in other ways. Some of them have done grants or have a donor that wants to support it. And you can also pay yearly or monthly depending on what works for you guys for both of our stuff. Another question is what happens after launch. What's neat about both these projects, and builds on how Josh finished his, is that both of Flocknote and eCatholic are constantly getting better. Every month when you log in, there's new features and it works better and it does more things and helps you more. And the same thing is, with this partnership with the diocese, this is not at all, I know I speak for both of us. Our passion is to really help the church carry on its mission and do what it does. So we're not interested in just getting people set up and leaving. We continually teach, some of those things I mentioned. It's a partnership where we're constantly working to try to improve the usage of all the parishes. A neat way to think about it too is, if you thought about hiring a staff at the diocese, if you had to hire one person to basically provide all of this service from scratch to somebody and support it all, you couldn't do it. You're not just developing new features and everything else, but your technical support and all that kind of stuff. What is a part of the cost of getting Flocknote and eCatholic is that, of course, we have a whole team of support people that are constantly there to answer questions, help make sure they're successful, all of that. So all we need is a willing participant in a diocese who really cares about improving things at the diocese.